Make Money Work, Financial Freedom is a production of Twin Cities PBS. Funding has been provided by Wells Fargo Foundation, working together with families, neighborhoods, and the community to achieve great things.
For many Americans, our first experience with buying and selling, paying bills, and managing money comes while playing the game of Monopoly.
I won Monopoly by having hotels on the light blue ones and 3 people come and land on those. I win the game, but I didn't go out and just automatically buy Boardwalk.
Pulling a chance card could be a good thing or it could set you back. There's some life in that, right?
In my family, we didn't play the game of Monopoly, but we probably played something similar in real life.
Managing money isn't a game. How do we take control of our personal finances and develop wealth? How can banks do better in diverse communities? What can turn our credit scores from a mystery into a possibility? How do we reach financial goals like home ownership? How do we make money work? At the Junior Achievement Money Management Simulations, middle school students get a real-world immersion into financial literacy.
There you go, so that's your balance. At first it was very, very stressful because you have to know like your monthly budget, your yearly budget, and then figure out like the needs and the wants and how much money you can spend so that you don't go in debt. I think it's good because then when you grow up and when you go to college and starting a life, you'll already know.
Early learning on money management can prevent more Americans from having to learn the hard way.
Start with the children so that by the time they get my age, they're not going through what I'm going at the same level.
Meet Ms. Jackson.
Yes, that is believing in yourself.
From volunteering in schools to work and community building, she is organized, engaged, and on it. And so is her daughter, Thandisizwe, a former Miss Black Minnesota winner who works in housing support.
And I've even heard you say that you think that housing is a human right.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's important.
But like many, Miss Jackson got tripped up by the Great Recession. 5 years ago, she was fighting off foreclosure.
And if I take a stand, will I be standing all alone? Or is the story that I shown somewhere closer to your own?
I mean, I just recently, after about a 4-year fight, lost my fight and am the product of a sheriff's sale in October. And if nothing changes in the worst case scenario, then my child and I become a statistic April 1st among the homeless, if you will.
They holding up the gate, they holding up the gate. I share what's on my plate, though they say they can't relate.
Homeownership is important, but it's important when it's done the right way. But what we also know, according to the Ariel Schwab Black Investor Survey, is that those of African descent in this country are overly concentrated in real estate. And that means that the 2008 economic downturn disproportionately impacted those folks. So now we've got a situation on our hands where we have a huge wealth gap that is continuing to widen, and 2008 made it worse.
Said if you gon' get it, better get it how you can. And it ain't how you fall, cause it's really how you land. And it ain't how you land, it's how you get back on your feet.
It's not about how you fall. It's all about how you get back up. Because there's what's right and there's what's real. A lot of times we'll read all of the things that we should do that's right, but real stuff happens. And so when it does happen, how we get back up is what it's all about.
That's the kind of stuff that is your real test. You know, the sense of purpose, the sense of empowerment, the sense of knowing that, no, I'm not an idiot. No, this isn't all my fault. Yes, I'm still waiting for my 40 acres and my mule, so work with me.
Why you think this pain is on my face?
40 acres and a mule refers to the offer of compensation General Sherman made to some freed blacks following the Civil War. The offer was only made to a few and was eventually withdrawn. But literacy was a real path to freedom for the enslaved African Americans.
That's a trap for you.
And the key to financial freedom today is financial literacy.
Yeah, I think the most is housing and transportation. They definitely cost.
Financial literacy is for everyone. Regardless of who you are, how old you are, you're going to be working or communicating or being part of a customer of some financial institution. And there will be many decisions that you will be making.
What we're attempting to do through financial literacy, getting smart about credit and homeownership seminars, is introduce people to the preparation necessary to take advantage of the opportunities that exist in our community.
I think financial literacy is really having the knowledge to understand what your money is, where it's going, and what it can do for you in the future.
You know, it's not just teaching somebody how to apply and obtain a mortgage. It's teaching them about the practices of some of the practices of the industry so that they can make decisions for themselves.
And so when you look at the wealth gap between blacks and whites in this country, and specifically in Minnesota, we have to tackle the financial literacy issue. And I really feel like that's going to be what changes the Black community and the state that it's in.
On the one hand, folks are very thrifty. Because they're not working with a lot, they're really creative with how they get their resources to manage things. The other end of it is that they may be a little beaten down.
There are a lot of our customers, clients, members who don't make it to a bank branch ever.
For the clients that we serve, they have so much struggle with the banking system, and they just don't trust the financial institutions that are supposed to be guarding our money.
Many things contribute to this lack of trust, including a history of exclusion and discrimination.
He has his bank account here, and he is well known to the officials of the bank as an honest, conscientious, capable businessman.
African Americans were not always welcome in those establishments. Credit was not an option. You paid cash, and we used to joke that sometimes you needed a cosigner to pay cash. And that really put a dent in home ownership, particularly for middle-class blacks.
Historically, there was a concept called redlining. So insurance companies would draw a red line around a community, and then they would not insure the mortgage or the home that's in that community. So over the years, then community organizing became more and more important. Congress, with the help of many different civil rights organizations, passed the Community Reinvestment Act.
In the late 70s, the Community Reinvestment Act, or CRA, established new regulations and guidelines designed to end redlining and other discriminatory practices, and to encourage equity in lending.
There is another part to that now called the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act.
It's called HMDA most often, but it's Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. And that is when we collect information as part of a mortgage application. It helps us understand where we're at, how we're doing as an organization, how we are doing as a bank. We should be at parity or better in ethnic minority categories. We collect that data. The government collects that data, and it helps us.
Now banks have to prove to the federal government that they are, in fact, doing business and doing well in these communities.
Because the other part of my struggle was it was difficult to get face-to-face with folks. And so can you imagine if we just had conversations and we came a little closer to one another and to really sit face-to-face.
Who do you have as a support system to challenge you to continue to pursue your dreams?
Part of financial literacy is knowing you are not alone. There's help, and there is no shame in asking for it. Ms. Jackson worked with organizations that helped her start down the path of financial freedom.
Ms. Jackson heard about our financial coaching program. She's very community oriented, and I mean, if you want to know about a resource, Ms. Jackson will probably know about it. So she heard about the program, she contacted me. What made you want to start doing the work.
When I'm telling her what she ought to do, my daughter, then that means that I should have some semblance of doing that myself.
When she first came in, she had just kind of gotten through a rough time with her house. She had gone through a foreclosure on her home. That woman is spirited, and even though she's maybe in a slump, you would never know it.
Immediately, I saw her as a human being that saw me as a human being. Immediately, I felt her sincerity. She truly cares. And that was very important to me. And even though I've got a few of the answers, I don't have all of the answers. And the huge piece for me was that I had somebody that was standing in the gap for me.
Miss Jackson just has a general spark about her, no matter what's going on. And so she was very determined to kind of work through these things.
I've been short on the red too much ever since my ex moved out.
She had just gotten a really great job, so she finally had some income to kind of be able to focus on these things that she felt were dragging her down. We looked at her balance sheet, we created a budget for her, we kind of listed out her goals and started making action plans.
Looking for a fresh new house, new start, new change to the old ways. Been so hard for me to juggle, just to keep a tank full of propane. And I know my people caught up in the struggle.
I think the more that we can talk to people and get them to rally on their own behalves without feeling that I've done something wrong, the better off that we will be. And it will make for a brighter tomorrow for you young'uns coming behind us. And part of it also has to do with my lifelong learning philosophy that even with me not being happy about the way that I've operated in the past, there's always room for something to be clarified and for something to be learned.
How do you think that your scenario would have turned out if those programs weren't available to people in this community?
Oh my gosh, it would be. Well, part of the issue is many times people in our community don't know that they exist and they're right under their noses. And so it's, if you can know about the program and access it, it will make a difference.
If they go to other people in the for-profit sector, everybody's got an agenda, so to speak. So they use me and people like me as a way of getting neutral information.
Your pockets are empty. You got holes in your socks. Your bank account's drained and your credit's ruined. People don't want to share that with the world. And I understand that. But here's a safe place to talk. At Urban League, we are a safe place.
Coaching is about where you're trying to get people to take leadership in their destiny. You're trying to ask very strategic questions in which they kind of come up with their own answers of what they want to do.
Well, I've been a banker for almost 32 years. I've been involved in banking and financial services and been a millionaire several times, been broke, been bankrupt, lost houses to foreclosure on a lot of different behaviors and patterns I had been in. Now I was given the opportunity to steer families away from some of those behaviors and helping them to get some really solid patterns so they could build sustainable wealth. What we've been doing is trying to bring unbanked and underbanked in, and we're giving them the information, and we're raising them up to bank standards. We call it a faith-based origination company. So we started teaching people how to be sustainable homeowners, how to get into homeownership, and how to save money and start creating generational wealth instead of generational poverty.
We teach a 12-hour series of classes. It's pretty in-depth on personal finance. We teach all about budgeting. We teach about how to create a savings for yourself. We teach about reducing debt. We talk about building credit. We know how important that is now more than ever. We really try to empower our folks to look at their credit, know what it is, and be working on it to make it better.
A key to financial literacy, building wealth, and home ownership is knowing the 4 C's of credit.
Credit history, capacity, collateral, and condition. Credit history is a demonstration of repayment of credit you've received. Capacity is your capacity to repay back the loan.
And that is the ability to make a mortgage payment now and sometime into the future.
There's 2 other components, collateral and condition. The collateral is what's used to secure the loan, which would be a home or a car, could be other things. And the condition would be market conditions.
Okay, is it worth the loan amount or equivalent to the loan amount that one's financing for the home?
So we peeled back the C's a little bit more, and we discovered that there's some meaningful things. And one of the most important things is knowing your credit history.
Nowadays, to get a job, employers look at credit. To get an apartment, people look at credit. Insurance companies.
The creditors, banks, credit card companies, need some kind of objective criteria on which to evaluate their ability to pay back a loan. And so over time, we've developed these systems which we attach a number to. Most people don't know anything about credit. They don't know how to grow their credit. They don't know how to manage their credit. When people first come to me, the range of credit scores that they're in, anywhere from, I would say, 450, which is on the low end, to maybe 585. They're in kind of a double bind here. They've got to clear up old stuff that doesn't necessarily help your credit score grow, and then they've got to turn around and they've got to build credit in order to get that score up. They've got to use credit.
Get a secured credit card and only use that credit card for necessities. So if I drive, I got to do gas. So get gas, pay off, get gas, pay off. So we're actually tricking the system by providing good things for the system to report.
That's how you build your credit score, is through the use of credit. And if you can't get credit, you can't build credit. And just clearing up old debts is not enough. So they're in a double bind, and that takes time.
Those things can kind of weigh on you when you're getting calls from the collectors and, they're harassing you. It weighs on your spirit. Let's talk about our last time in my office with the creditor.
Yes.
Remember, we negotiated 3 different times.
Yes.
And that third time, I was getting ready to take the second offer. And I looked at you, and you said,
no. Absolutely.
Keep at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Roof over head, head full of steam, tank full of fuel, bank full of green.
That was an exciting breakthrough. That was a good feeling.
Yeah. Well, that was the very last piece, too, the last debt that there was.
Yes.
I think when I first pulled her credit, I don't think she even had a score. There were a couple of things that were in collections at the time, and so there was just not even a score. Shortly after we first met and kind of got a picture of her financial situation, she engaged in that credit builder loan program. And the first time that we really noticed a big change was 6 months after she started the program, and she was in my office. We pulled her credit, and it was already in the 600s. She looked at it, and she just looked up, and it was like, she almost couldn't believe it.
To do that, and oh my gosh, and it would have not been done to that extent if it had not been with you, walking the journey with me. You had my back, stood in the gap. I tell you, yes.
I still have your back.
Yes.
So,
I've come to and continue to appreciate with Shawna Thompson, and she's just, she's, as the young folks say, she the bomb.
I might just rain, it might just storm, so now you know why I need my roof over.
These organizations have the cultural agility and proven commitment to diverse communities. Some banks are following their lead.
Wells Fargo has been working with the National Urban League and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP national office. And the Twin Cities was one of the half-dozen metropolitan areas around the country that was selected for focal work around financial literacy, homeownership, and establishing good credit.
It's been awesome to be with community leaders and having banking professionals come together in that space.
So our partnership in the community, primarily around financial education, is one that we truly value. We have to continue to remind ourselves, everyone, how can we all evolve together to continue to build a trust, to make sure that we can do good business together, but more importantly, build a relationship together.
You're looking at numbers, not people. You don't hear the story. You don't hear the message. And the message is what build banks. You can't build a single bank without a good client, good customer, good member. And you need to discover them.
Think of us as human beings. So that'd be one of the first things I'd say to the bankers. Treat us all as human beings. The other thing that I would say to the bankers is eliminate the greed.
There are businesses out there who will take advantage of you. And you may be paying a higher rate than you need to. So there are many different ways that if you're unaware, you can be taken advantage of, and then you're paying actually more than you need to.
People want to have banks look out for their interest. So people were really asking for banks to step up and give sort of a more personalized, customized service and just transaction.
It's intimidating to even just to go into the bank because they already feel like they're being judged just by walking in the door.
When I arrived here, I wear a suit and tie every day. And I thought that's what I wear to work, because that's what I wear as a banker uniform for decades. Well, when I first started seeing clients, they were very quiet, a little bit bitter, not necessarily welcoming me, and I didn't get it. Well, the first Friday I work, we have Casual Friday here, and I wore a polo shirt and blue jeans, and I was dressed in very casual. And I had a client that day. Boy, did they open up. I didn't recognize that the uniform I was wearing was a uniform of distrust for some people. And that was off-putting for some clients. They want to talk to you as a peer, know what you have to know. They want to learn from you. They don't want to be talked down to. They don't want to be lectured. These are adult learners. Adult learners learn differently.
So I'm truly honored to be in front of you guys today.
Affinity Plus, a credit union here in the Twin Cities, one of their representatives comes and teaches about, for-profit banks and nonprofit banks and what the difference is in our financial literacy class.
Okay, last question. Who here trusts their bank or credit union? Okay, so hesitancy here. Okay, that's interesting. I think that trust is truly built when you are present in your communities.
And this is back to financial literacy. If you or I are walking in there for a credit card, but then now they want us to sell us insurance, they want us to sell us more. Well, do we really need those other two products? Probably, maybe not. But so we have to be able to say, I know, well, thank you for the offer, but I just need that credit card.
And I know that all bankers, I'm not speaking that bankers don't have the same passion. I'm just saying some banks have gotten so large that that is not the top priority, and banks have to get back to what has made them rich, and it is relationship. The bank used to come to our school every week. It's First Bank. I was born and raised in St. Paul. That same building is there today. First Bank would come and open up savings account. They'd bring the little blue book, and we'd have this dime we'd put in.
These close-knit connections between locally owned banks and their neighborhoods are largely a thing of the past. But there are still some examples of ways banks are connecting with kids and communities. Junior Achievement coordinates several different financial literacy experiences for students.
This curriculum is very focused on personal finance. They are forced to live life like an adult does by budgeting.
Yeah, and you really just have to think about needs versus wants.
Or your spouse, is that what?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fun to give back. Working for a not-for-profit, that's part of our culture. Volunteerism is hugely important. But they also see the need, and they enjoy teaching and helping the kids.
So it helps me see how I can take what I'm passionate about, children, and helping them learn, and use that in my business background and saying I can merge the both of them.
I would rather learn young than learn older, so then it kind of prepares you. But it was really, really, really hard. Now I know my parents are so stressed all the time.
What intrigued me to be a banker is my dad took me to a bank and they knew his name. They said, "How you doing, Mr. McGee?" And then they gave him money, and I was just a little kid like, wait a minute, she knows your name, she called you Mr., and she gave you cash. So I just figured, wow, what a job that would be. That never left me. They gave us money to buy our first home. When I was little, we lived in the projects back in the day, but my dad bought his first home, and for a family of 9. That was awesome to me.
Owning a home is one of the cornerstones of building wealth in the United States.
Turning a house into a home is very meaningful. It's meaningful to families, it's meaningful to communities.
We all thrive through people who invest and anchor themselves somewhere through home ownership, it's a great way to build wealth.
People think that poor people don't know how to manage their money. That's not true. In trying to make that dream of home ownership happen, they organize the rest of their finances. It can get pretty emotional when you're attending a closing and you've got people who have been working for, years in trying to achieve the American dream, and they realize that when they're signing the papers at closing, that it's going to be theirs. It can get really emotional.
It was something to beat my dad at Monopoly, come on. And he was the smart guy in my world, my hero, and I could beat him.
Setting up the bank. I loved setting up the bank.
The game of Monopoly, that's a good start. I think that can happen with allowance. I think that can happen with saving change.
It's a part of the Monopoly that we all need to own. If I own property, we can always use, provided our credit is good, we can always use that to sustain ourselves.
Make Money Work, Financial Freedom is a production of Twin Cities PBS. Funding has been provided by Wells Fargo Foundation, working together with families, neighborhoods, and the community to achieve great things.